Alright, it's a little past 5:30, so I apologize. Had a little bit of technical difficulties, but printer's working, the internet's working, I can go live, so I'm good to go. Just gonna wait a couple seconds here. They're building an audience for me. I got one person, it's probably my wife. I don't know if I can check that. Alright, got 3 people. Sweet. Hopefully I caught everybody at a good time. Of course, my wife, she's awesome. She's there. Um, who else is there? I got 2 people. Can't both be my wife. Oh, man. Alright, so I got a thumbs up from the wife. Who else we got here? Give me a shout out. Let me know you're on. Alright. Well, I'll do a little background on myself, and then, because I intend to share this video via YouTube after. So if you didn't catch it now, I'll post on YouTube. So I'm a 40-year-old male, okay? Back in 2008, I saw a picture that someone tagged me in Facebook. I was on the beach with some buddies, and I was the guy in the picture that was the big guy. I mean, even the guy that was, like, he was pretty big. There was another guy that was on there that was pretty big. I made him look like a stud. And so I saw that picture. I saw that picture in August or whatever, September 2008. And I was like, wow. I mean, to give you a long story, make a long story short, ever since I was like 5 or 6 years old, I've carried some extra weight. I kind of learned that eating is a way to shield myself, from things that stress me out. And so I've been using that association since I was like 6 years old. There were times in my life where I'd introduce new things, like, join a sports team, or I went to the military, or I was, vegetarian for like 5 years. Like, those periods, I definitely had a weight loss because I introduced something new. But otherwise, I've always kind of creeped back on up, all the way up to, like, I say 220 pounds in 2008, but maybe it was a little higher. I don't know. I don't think I really was looking at the scale as much. Probably because I knew it was a little heavier. So anyways, long story short, I saw that picture, and I decided to leave myself tagged. Like, if you wanted to go on to my photos, it was in there. Because I could have untagged that photo, and no one would have known I was in there, really. I could have hid from what I saw. But I chose to face it. And so it took a while. I mean, it's not like I wasn't working out between 2008 and 2011, but it took a while to start the process. And so 2011, my wife and I bought P90X. We saw some of the infomercials. We bought P90X, and we did it together. I mean, I did not have a very big weight set, and so I didn't really push myself. I didn't even touch nutrition, really. And so my results weren't that great. I looked a little bit better, but it was like, I got a little stronger, so that was good. But then a year goes by, we do Insanity because we're getting ready for our wedding. Or maybe it was 2009. 2009 or something, I think we did the P90X. Hey, Tia. And Tia's here. Tia, I think, just finished up her Ultimate Reset, so she can always chime in, too, when different questions. Sarah's here. Sarah is also one of the coaches that joined me in a group, and that we were doing this together. And so she can chime in as well. But just to get this through so we can get on with the things I've learned, I did a program every other year or so. And it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that I just realized I wasn't taking care of myself. I was putting myself last. I wasn't getting any workout. Like, usually at least I could squeeze something in a few times a week. I wasn't doing a thing, Monday through Sunday. I wasn't doing a thing. Hey. So I decided to get up early, and I did this program called T25. It's like a 25-minute cardio-based program, and I started really working on nutrition as well. So I put them all together and I lost 20 pounds in that first program. Since then, I've done a bunch of other programs. Some have made me gain weight, most of them made me lose a little bit of weight. The gaining weight was a weightlifting one, so I didn't think I had my nutrition down there, but I did gain some muscle. The other programs, I would just gain a couple, lose a couple pounds here and there. So that's the long story short. Then came into this program. It's always been in the back of my mind. In this program, I'm talking about the Ultimate Reset. It's a 21-day cleanse, and it's not working out. It's pure nutrition. That's it, pure nutrition. I get a little reflection here, so maybe I should do this. I guess it doesn't matter. So what they do here, and the thing is, we have two programs that focus on nutrition. We have a 3-day cleanse, and then we have this 21-day cleanse. And to be honest with you, I actually think the 3-day cleanse is tougher than this 21-day cleanse. That sounds weird me saying that, but on the 3-day cleanse, you have 2 shakes, one for breakfast, one for lunch, and then you have a normal meal. All right, that's part of the program for those 3 days. And so I would find myself more hungry because you're only having 1,100 calories a day, and so I was definitely a lot more hungry, and it was a lot tougher for me. And I even cheated a lot more on that. But I've done that cleanse like 4 or 5 times now. And so I felt like I was prepared to tackle this one, this 21-day, 3-week cleanse. Now this one, they have pure food lined up every meal. You're eating every meal. If you choose to have a shake, that's your option, but you're not forced to have a shake. And so it's different. At no point did I feel like I was starving, I was just like dying of hunger. So that was a big difference. That helped a lot. The other thing that helped a lot is that I had a very strong vision of where I want to go, who I want to be, and what I want to learn from doing this. And so people say, "Oh, you have such good willpower." Well, yeah, maybe that's true, but I know, like from all the weeks before this cleanse, that I've had moments where I binge and eat at night or something, or cheat on, like, say, that 3-day cleanse. Like, I've had moments where that willpower didn't exist. So why was it? What's changing me now? Well, I think I have a picture of what I want to do and where I want to go and how strong that is. And I think that makes a difference. And so, if anything you take away from this, you got to think about where you want to go. What do you want to do? It really helps you stay the course. All right. So let me get into some of these points and let me see what you think. The first thing, and maybe some of these things might be obvious. All right, they might be obvious. So forgive me if they are, but maybe we forget them. Even though they're so obvious, we forget these things. And so the first point I learned was that nutrition is more important than you think. And I've learned this over the course of all these programs. I've worked out so hard, but I've only lost a few pounds here, a few pounds there, other than that one program I talked about where I lost like 20 pounds. Here I didn't really work out at all. I walked the dogs, and I had my usual 10,000 to 12,000 steps, right? Hey, Sam, thanks for joining me. So yeah, I had my normal steps, for what it's worth. I didn't do any working out otherwise. Walking the dog and going up the hill, up the street was probably the most I had to, push. So these 13 pounds that I lost was just pure nutrition. So it just gives you an inkling as to how important nutrition is, and we cast it aside so easily. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining me. So first point, nutrition, very key, more so than working out. All right, but for some of us, I think starting the working out part and then going to nutrition is kind of like the process that we go through. It's the process that I went through. All right, second thing I learned was that water is crucial. Like I said, this is kind of maybe a no-brainer, maybe it isn't. But in the program, and in a lot of our programs, half your body weight is what's recommended in ounces. So I was going into this 193 pounds. We'll just round it up to 200. I need 100 ounces of water a day. That's what they recommend. Some people do better on more. Some people, can maybe do a little bit better on less. It all depends. Everybody's different. And so finding that water intake for you is kind of, it's up to you. But starting at half your body weight and going from there is kind of big. How do you get half that water in? Well, the first thing when you wake up, you drink water. Try and drink as much water as you can. I mean, you could, if you work on it, you can get probably 20, 24 ounces, 32 ounces, who knows? of water in right when you wake up. Okay, and that makes the rest of the day so much easier because then you can take at 10 o'clock you can have some water and so on. But that's kind of how I did it. You hit the day going strong, and this is what this program does. So the weird thing that and to make a quick little story, I remember my grandmother, and we would be sitting down with my grandmother for dinner, and she would be like, she wouldn't drink any water, or she'd have like a little tiny glass of water or something like that during the meal. And I was like, why are you drinking so little water? You should have more water. She's like, no, I just eat the meal. I don't drink the water, as much. I'm like, but that'll help you fill up, like, and I don't know if you're under this impression too, but I thought like, oh yeah, you eat the meal, and if you drink more water, obviously you'll feel more full, you'll eat less, and that might be true. But what I've learned on this program is you drink your water before your meal. Drink it a half hour before your meal. It will fill you up. It'll still do what we think it should do, but it also, water kind of primes all your organs, everything that's going to do all the processing. It's kind of like flooding them with water, getting them ready to go to really get the most out of this food. And so I was used to drinking more fluids during the meal versus before the meal. And they say that actually kind of screws up the digestive process. I mean, Sarah's chiming in. I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that drinking that much water during the meal messes with your digestive process. So there's something you can take away from it. Drink your water, and if you can't drink a lot of water, start with 8 ounces and have 8 ounces a half hour before your meal. Yeah, see, Tia as well. See, I mean, it's a small thing. It's a small thing that we don't think about. So that was a big thing with water. The other big thing with water is that, like, say you're in the middle of the afternoon or wherever you are, and you think you're hungry, right? And you think you could be hungry, maybe because, one, you're hungry, but often we're not hungry. We're just like bored, or we're in a situation like watching TV or something where we are used to snacking or eating, and so it's kind of like an association thing. So it's like, oh, I'm doing this, I want to do this. It's kind of like smokers and drinking, right? You ever be around them when you're at a bar? It's like they just pound through cigarettes. It's just kind of like that association. So the same thing exists here. So if you get hungry at some point, chug 8 ounces of water, chug 12 ounces, chug 20 ounces of water. Give it a few minutes and then ride it out and see if you were really hungry. At least it's going to tell you if you were or if you weren't, and it'll help you get your water intake in for the day at that. So that was another thing. Before you want to eat something, just chug a little water and see what happens. That helped me a lot. So that was the second point, all about water. The third point was all about meals, and I have a few things in there. So I don't know if I can show it to you. Let's see if we can do this. Now, not everybody, like Sarah, and I don't think Sarah did this, or Tia, or other, I don't know about other people, but I really wanted to take this like uber serious, and that was just me. And so I owned a food scale, and I have a lot of experience with the app called Lose It. It's very similar to MyFitnessPal. Basically, it's a food journal app. And so I tracked everything I ate. I scanned it, I weighed it, so I knew exactly how much, what the calories and all the nutrients. I wanted to just be accurate. I kind of wanted to see what was going on. I'm a numbers geek, so I just like to look at the numbers. What can I say? Numbers tell a lot. At least I like looking at numbers, and they tell a lot to me. So, so that's what I did. I kind of went kind of crazy with that. And I put it in a video before, but Aaron, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, it's like, oh, Lance Armstrong, we were talking about him, before his whole scandal thing. And she's like, yeah, he weighs all his food. I'm like, he weighs his food? Is that guy crazy? Like, how much work does that take? That's ridiculous. Like, I could never do that. Oh, it's so tough. She's like, well, he's got to make sure his weight's on par, and that he's he's not carrying excess weight when he's going up the French mountain, all those mountains and stuff. So, like Sarah said, she weighed and did things in the cups, and that's definitely, I think it helps because it's a way to measure. But I wanted to know, like, what was the gram amount? Like, if you look on the back of a food package, it'll say like what the serving size is, and then next to it, it'll say how many grams it should be. And so different foods are denser than others, so they're going to weigh differently. And so I just didn't want to mess that up. So anyways, Yeah, I said I can never weigh my food, and look at me now. I have a food scale, and I did that. So this wasn't always me. It's just me now. I've taken years to get to that. So it's not like you have to do that. Your journey doesn't have to start with buying a food scale and doing all this. You could start somewhere and work your way towards it. It all depends on how serious you want to be. So I wanted to be serious. So let's see here. Let me try and bring it up. All right, I'm going to flip this. Let me see how it looks on my phone. And I don't know. Let's see here. Okay. So what you're looking at here is I got, it by weeks, and it wants to keep focusing and how many calories. And so the first week I had about 1,566 calories. Then it was roughly the same amount for week 2. And then you can see in week 3 it dropped down to 1,189. Now keep in mind, as a male, I was allowed to eat more food than, say, Sarah or Tia, who are on this video right now. They couldn't eat technically as much as me. So that was kind of an accommodation I have. I broke down how many grams of fats, per week, and you can see the fat amount went up for week 2, but it went down. Carbs, kind of stayed the same, and then they dropped. And then protein, as you can see, dropped every time. And just to give you a little background, week 1, you got like a serving of fish and some chicken, but that was only like 2 meals. The other 21 meals of the week, or 19 meals, had no like protein source like from meat or fish. So, and then the second week, what we do is we cut it out, like all the animal products, like yogurt and stuff like that. We got rid of that. And then week 3, we got rid of grains, and so we're basically left with fruits and vegetables. So here's the percentage. You can see fat percentage. Okay, here's some percentages. As the weeks went by, fat percentage went up, carbs went up. Look at, they went up. Protein went down. Another thing I wanted to monitor was like, all right, sugars and sodium. And so you can see sugars actually went higher. See, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, I gotta keep my sugars down. I gotta keep my sugars down. Like, so, here's a case where my sugars went up, but look how they went up. Because like as I went through the whole cleanse, what changed a lot was breakfast. Breakfast started going to a lot of fruit, and so you can see that the sugars from breakfast clearly went up. So by the 3rd week, when we were just doing fruits and vegetables, and basically all the fruit was for breakfast, 46 of these 77 grams of sugar, or 60% of my sugars came at breakfast. Alright, sodium dropped down. The other little thing I got down here, let's see here, I got the meals. So you could see breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These are calories for each meal. So like my breakfast went from 413 down to 299 down to 265. So even cutting down to that fruit, my calories went down there. Obviously the calories should go down for the most part. These calories stayed the same for lunch, down to 5 dozen on a week. And then finally dinner, 537, 515. Okay, so here's the pattern that I want you to notice. Those are my dogs. This is just my life. Notice that lunch is the biggest meal. Alright, lunch is bigger than dinner. And breakfast is a little smaller. Here's my weight loss too. I lost 6.6 pounds the first week, 2.5 during the second, and 4.1 finishing up. So, what did I learn from all those numbers? Why is lunch heavier? Well, we like to think of food as something that's pleasurable, right? Food fuels us. Now think about it. You have breakfast, you have some activity. You have lunch, and you have some activity. And you have dinner, and you go to bed, roughly. So if you're thinking about food as fuel, why would you want to make dinner a big meal? Because you're really not going to use those calories at all to do much but sleep. You can make them quality calories, depending on how busy your day was and how much you want to repair your body overnight. But you don't need like tons of calories to do that. So really, the first 2 meals of your day could be front-loaded with your calories, and dinner should be lower. The only reason why I think breakfast is so low is because so many people have a tendency not to eat breakfast so much. All right? And you can think about it. Why don't we eat breakfast so much? Well, where do we make our biggest meal? Dinner. So if we make dinner our biggest meal, then we go to bed really full. and then we wake up not hungry. And I'm guilty of this big time. Now, if you made dinner a smaller portion calorie-wise, you would probably wake up being hungry, and then you'd probably eat more for breakfast when you need the fuel to use during the day versus dinner when you don't need the fuel to use to sleep. And so if you want to make some transitions, try and start cutting back your dinner. And if it seems like, well, I'm still hungry, start throwing more vegetables in there. Throw a salad in with every part of your dinner. Throw more veggies. If you didn't pick up on any of the videos I had, I was having cucumber like crazy. Like cucumber is a very water-dense vegetable, and so it's going to fill you up, but not many calories. So if you really want to make something of that change, add a little salad and add some vegetables that are going to soak up that space. Tia asked, let's see what Tia Tia was just knowing that like the extra food that I got as a male. Let's see here. Was my protein in week 3 from Shakeology? Okay, so she brought up a great point. Now, I did not stick to their menu exclusively. Like you do anything for the first time, and we tend to be so hard on ourselves, myself included. The first time you do something, you're probably going to stink at it, or it's not going to go so well. We just don't want to fail. And so this is a 3-week process. This is like a lot different. So I was open to doing what I can, when I can, and changing things, if I had to. And the same thing goes for that 3-day cleanse. Like, first one I did wasn't so easy. It gets easier every time you do it. And so on this, when it comes to protein, so I had Shakeology, I think it was, I think 11 or 12 times. I mean, so it's 21 days, 3 meals a day, so what's that? 63 meals. So 10 or 11 of the 63 meals was Shakeology. All right. And I threw it in there mainly because either I was inconvenienced. Is basically what I threw it in there for. It was the main reason, because I was at a conference and I wasn't gonna have time to prep my food, or I didn't get a chance to go out to the supermarket and get what I needed, and so I needed to eat, and I wasn't gonna wait around and push it off, so I made a shake. And then for the few instances where I don't want to eat that breakfast, or I don't want to eat a salad for lunch, I'm going to have a break, I'm going to have a shake. So those are the reasons why I did that. Now, Shakeology definitely affected my protein level there, because Shakeology adds in an extra 16 grams of protein. And most of the meals, like 16 grams, you'd be lucky if you got that, especially near the end. So that definitely threw off my protein for sure. The other thing I did, and Sarah's not going to like this one, is that I came to like the baked tempeh recipe. And so I think I had that like 11 times. I think the menu only calls for you to have baked tempeh probably like 4, maybe 5 times. But in the meals that you can defer to, like they have a list of foods that you like. If you don't want to do this menu, here's a really condensed menu that you can have if you're in a crunch. And so on that there was the tempeh. It was tough. Definitely, week 3 is tough because you're just eating meat, vegetables and fruits, and you're not getting really any protein at all. So I ate the baked tempeh a lot, and tempeh is basically soybeans kind of put together with, I don't know, it's made just basically soybeans in like a cake. Looks like a cake. And so we weren't just eating that like non on cardboard. It wasn't like that. It was like they made a marinade, and it was kind of like a soy garlic based marinade, which made it taste not good. And you let it sit and you baked it up. 4 ounces was a serving, and 2 ounces was a half serving. And so 4 ounces was something like 25 grams of protein. And everybody's like, oh, soy, that's so bad. Well, soy in moderation, okay? You don't want to have a ton of soy, but, and yes, maybe I had a ton of soy comparatively because of this cleanse, but it was only 21 days. It's not my livelihood otherwise. So 21 days, 11 meals I had tempeh. No big deal. So that's something I threw in there. All right, so the point that getting back to my points here, because I'm going to stay on task. Dinner should not be your biggest meal. It shouldn't be. Lunch can be your biggest meal. Breakfast can be bigger, but cut back on dinner. Let's see here. Timing. I talked about timing. Well, maybe I didn't talk so much about time, but I talked about the quantity at dinner and reason why you're not hungry when you wake up. But the other thing is when you eat at night. Um, you should allow at least two, I'd say probably closer to 3+ hours between your dinner and when you go to bed. Time to process that. And that's going to help in you waking up hungry. But if you eat dinner and you go to bed an hour later, that might not happen. And it happened a couple days in this. It's just by the time we get the kids down and everything gets pushed back, and I'm eating at 8:30, 9, and maybe I'm going to bed at 10 or so. I mean, so it's not like it's perfect for me, but I found that when I ate and I timed it right, I was hungry when I woke up. So that's a good takeaway that you can have. Okay, so that was the deal with the meals. The other thing I noticed, was my sodium. If the videos, if you caught any of them, there were some days where my sodium was really high, either because of a recipe screw up or maybe the way they lined the menu up. But because I'm tracking it, I can look at the numbers every night and be like, how did this day turn out? How's the percentage breakdown of, my macros, my fats, my carbs, my proteins? What do they look like? What's it doing for me? And I know that from before, 3,000 milligrams of sodium was kind of like the average I've been doing. If I go under, that's good. If I go up, that's kind of bad. And so some days I was over 3,000, and lo and behold, the next day I didn't lose weight, I gained weight. Why? Because the sodium retains water, and the water makes you weight heavy. So the scale, like I said before, the scale's not always accurate. A lot of factors go into that scale. And you know what? I started weighing myself every day, and I don't know, some people are like, well, that's bad, but it's bad on how you look at the scale. If you look at the scale just as hey, it's a number just to see how the day's going or how one day went from the next, no big deal, that's great. It's like tracking. It's like my food tracker. It's like my food scale. They're all tools to tell me how things are going, and what kind of adjustments I need to make. The scale is not, my self-worth. The scale is not who I am as a person, what values I have, what values I give to other people, what I can accomplish, who I could become. It's nothing. But unfortunately, we see that number. We're like, oh, it went up. I stink. I'm a loser. I stink at this thing. I want to give up. What's the point anyway? I'm sure I've been there. You've been there. But that's the difference. Perception of your mind. It's just a tool. If you use it just as a tool, that's it. Let's see here. I'll make a couple last little points, and then if anybody has any questions, I don't know who's on, I'm down to 2, so it's probably just Tia and Sarah, so thanks for staying on. If you want to start doing something like this, it's tough to know, is dinner my biggest meal, or is lunch my biggest meal? You could be like, well, I think dinner was, but you're guessing. So if you don't want to guess, and you want to be serious about it, then you should track it. All right? I'm not saying you have to use a food scale, but just writing down what you have and using, I can't tell you how easy it is with an iPhone or an Android. They have a bar scanner, so it's not like you have to write down all the stuff. You just put the UPC up in front of the phone, it scans it, it brings in all the data. You choose how big a serving you had. For a while I was just kind of guessing. I'd do that, or maybe I'd overguess, and it's not very accurate, but it's a place to start. And so I would do that, and I would track, each meal. The other thing is, as humans, we tend to eat the same stuff, routinely, probably have the same breakfast or whatever. So you don't have to scan everything every day. You can just go back to a previous meal and click on the items that you had and import that into the next day. It's really not that tough once you get used to it. And so it just provides you with a lot of information. If it's not just calories, you can start looking at, how much fat are you having, how much carbs are you having. And so just to give you a little example, I was doing a program, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, and I was tracking my food, okay? And my carbs were 300 grams per day on average, all right? And now they're 200 or a little bit below. Coincidentally, I didn't lose much weight when I was hitting those 300 carbs because I didn't need that many carbs. I wasn't my workouts weren't as long or intense to justify needing that many carbs. But now at 200, 150 to 200, it seems like I'm finding a better balance. You see what I mean? So like the only way I would know is if I tracked it. And so the only way you're going to know, what to adjust or how to play around is to track. So let's see here. So Sarah's bringing up a point, and I'm right here with her. There's a plan that as you come off this cleanse, they want you to reintroduce foods, just to kind of identify, is there something your body doesn't like? Because if there is, you probably shouldn't have much of it or none of it at all. But the only way to do it is to bring it back piecemeal, like little piece by little piece. And so these last few days, Sunday, my last day on this cleanse, I was at a restaurant, but I stayed the course. But after that, I was at 2 Red Sox games, and so I was almost, I had some popcorn and a little bit of pretzel on the first Red Sox game, but last night it was just, me and my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, and we Ubered down to the game, and so I had a few beers. I spread them out. Ironically, when I had my second beer, I got an IPA, and almost a third into it, I started getting a headache. And I was drinking a water too. I drank a water before I had the first beer, and I drank a water with every beer after that. And I still kind of got that headache from that beer, which is stinks. But it's 3 beers I call it a night, and the last beer I had the 5th inning or something, and it wasn't that bad. But it's tough. I mean, we get put into settings and we can't be perfect. We try to be perfect, but you do your best. If you're good 5 days out of the week, 6 days out of the week, that one day or maybe 2 days aren't going to affect your can't get this word out, your nutrition as much. So